And welcome back
Hey.
to the third segment of Fab Life. And now we're going to talk about the 1970s, the pop icons of the 1970s.
Yay.
And
Mod.
yeah, the pop icons of the 70s and the designer who was really big in the 1970s. Now,
Who was that? And the people.
Bettina insisted of me getting this bag because it says like
backpack.
it looks very Paco Rabanne.
It's the most amazing backpack. So cool. And
Yes.
Paco Rabanne with all the
Yes.
neat chain things together, and the whole dress had this chain link.
Yes.
Fabulous.
So anyhow, now we have to share to you what we have. You're back in the 70s. Back in the 70s, the icons that played a major influence was Sonny and Cher.
Yeah.
And there
Sonny
was
and Cher show.
the Carpenters, and of course my favorite ABBA. We're talking about ABBA, you know, from Sweden.
They wore a lot of folklore costuming.
Yes, a lot of folklore, but yeah,
their
they also evolved.
But Sonny and Cher was more hip.
Yeah,
they
more hip. Yeah, more
than anybody.
The flower power, you know, back in the early.
I think Cher was the best.
Yeah. So anyhow, one of the greatest designers back in the 1970s was Halston.
Yeah.
He was like a major influence, back then. And also him and his iconic friend Liza Minnelli. And let's not forget Andy Warhol, who was like a great 70s pop icon. Yes,
right.
and also the movie back in the mid-century. Oh, I forgot to mention Saturday Night Fever too. It was a major influence back in the 70s.
Truman Capote was right.
And Truman Capote, yes, and
yeah, the attitude.
One movie that played a major influence in fashion was Grease, because if you notice that movie, it was like it pulled all its fashion from the 50s, the cars, the clothes, the background,
and the ponytails,
the attitude,
and the hair, and the blowing gum.
Yes,
you know.
and when that movie, you know, was shown, the fashion industry took notice, and all of a sudden it started getting its influence from the 1950s. And
which
that's
is the age of innocence. I mean,
and which
happy days.
Which became the age of the 80s. You know, first it was the 50s, so now we're transitioning to the age of the 1980s. You know, over the top fashion,
shoulder pads,
colors, animal print,
and big. Animals never changed since then. It's
never
gone out.
Yeah,
it keeps coming back every single year, again and again and again, ever since then. That was the big thrust into animal prints.
And it's funny because I love the way Yves Saint Laurent evolved from the 60s, 70s, and so on. Like he adapted to change, and in the 1980s, he became a bigger designer, and a lot of women just fell in love with his clothes. I remember.
Beautiful safari jackets and his evening wear, and you know,
amazing. Beautiful. And the big
suits, the
big shoulder pads, cinched waistline, and all black, and the jewelry that his models wore. And on the opposite side of the elegance and aristocracy, sophistication of Yves Saint Laurent, there was the punk rock movement.
Right. Get down dirty, get in the club and start dancing.
Lot of punk rock with the hair, and a lot of heavy metal and body piercing and all that. Body piercing
and bright pink.
Yes.
Like blush on the eyeshadow.
Yes. And
I remember I went home to visit the family.
Yes.
Or they came to visit me in San Francisco where I was studying fashion design. And I had the bright pink. And one of my old friends, Mike Moe, hi Mike. He says, he takes me aside, and he was deeply concerned about my mental health, I guess.
Yes.
And he says to me, "This isn't you." And I had the bleach blonde hair. I said, "Yes, it is." Yeah. You know, I just thought that was so classic, though.
We have to keep it rolling because I have 1,000 pictures.
Okay.
So that was the punk rock movement.
And you've never changed. Your hair still looks punk rock today.
I've actually I've gone through considerable change. If you see my other photographs, you'll see that I've gone through
I've seen a lot of good
many.
I like
and now for the biggest icon of the 80s, which is Dynasty, Crystal, and most of all, the biggest bitch in television is none other than Alexis Carrington.
Alexis. Never will forget her.
Yes, Alexis Carrington.
The
yeah,
black and the white.
Yeah, a lot of women, you know, were very influenced by Dynasty and the way they dressed. And Nolan Miller was a designer back in the day. Another
fabulous fashion.
Yeah, another designer that I was very influenced by back in the 80s.
Landing too, right?
Knots Landing, yeah. Was Claude Montana and Thierry Mugler were both. If you see their styles were almost the same.
I love Montana.
But Mugler went more for the fantasy. You know,
he was over the top.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, hi, Nala.
His
the front, not the back.
Fashion shows were all fantastical. Sometimes he would show a fashion show, you know, that was very angelic goddesses and all that, and then he had a collection devoted to vampires.
Oh, so it goes the other direction.
Yeah, and
his yin and his yang.
And the reason why he created a collection about vampires was he was very upset with Christian Lacroix. Oh. So that was his form of saying the fierce and fabulous is in and the roses are dead. You know, that was his way of trampling, shade, you know, but
gotta throw it down once in a while. You gotta throw it down. And
and
you're gonna throw it down. I'm gonna throw it down.
To go deeply further into Mugler, the whole collection of the vampire thingy had Morticia Adams.
Oh, I love it.
And music by Jimi Hendrix and a bit of The Exorcist, and he threw everything down. And he even had a dress entitled Madam Satan. So he was.
Yeah, there's a place called the Velveteen Rabbit in town, and they have breakfast with Satan.
I just love his creativity, because he could go from one extreme to the other. First, you show angels and goddesses and superheroes, and then he went to the depths of hell and showed demons. Yeah.
And he came back again. He came back.
Of course, once again, we're showing this Yves Saint Laurent, you know, very colorful outfit of the 80s. The 80s was just an amazing decade and a mixture. It was an eclectic mix.
I had this oversized jacket with the big shoulder pads and a cotton, and it had it in about 6 colors. And it was long and oversized like the boyfriend jacket, and it had a little slim skirt that went with it, and I had it in 5 colors. You know, I loved it. Pastels and in brights. I had it in all these colors.
Yep. And also I forgot to put a picture of Madonna and Michael Jackson, because those two were like 80s icon, and Tina Turner too was a big 80s icon, and so many.
Madonna was kind of the punk feeling with Material Girl
and Duran, and there was, you know, Cyndi Lauper was also a big 80s pop icon. Who else can you think about of the 80s?
Katrina Luani, my cousin. She did the styling of the jewelry for Madonna. For
nice.
Material Girl.
Yeah, for Material Girl.
Hi, Katrina. How you doing in Florida?
Yeah. So
shout out for your work. It was really amazing. She didn't get credit for that, but she was pretty much.
Behind the accessories.
She never got credit in her boss's book. Nothing.
Oh,
but she was the one.
I'm so sorry to
hear
that.
She had her own jewelry collection.
Yes,
Katrina Luani, very amazing out of Florida.
Here I am bringing to you the fashion of the 70s and 80s. I hope that you enjoy all the images that are sliding behind us. And now we're going to wrap this segment up to show you our last segment, which is going to be the 90s and the millennium. All right.